Imagine waking up one day to find out that Canada is no longer our friendly neighbor, but the 51st state of America. Sounds exciting, right? Well, not so fast. The reality is much more complicated, and today we're going to dive deep into 6 powerful reasons why Canada does not need to be the 51st state. By the end of this video, you might just breathe a sigh of relief that it isn't. And hey, if you've ever wondered whether free healthcare is actually free, or why Canadians tend to outlive Americans, you're in for a treat. Let's get into it. Reason 1. Life expectancy. Let's start with something we all care about, staying alive longer. Did you know that if Canada became the 51st state, it would rank number 1 in life expectancy? That's right, at 81.7 years, Canadians outlive the average American. Compare that to Hawaii, the healthiest U.S. state, which boasts an average of 80.7 years. Canada, 81.7 years. Hawaii, 80.7 years. That might not sound like a huge gap, but over a lifetime, it adds up to significant years of better health and quality of life. But here's the catch. If Canada joined the U.S., would that number drop? With America's privatized healthcare system, skyrocketing costs, and disparities in access, many Canadians could see their health outcomes worsen dramatically. Imagine losing a decade of life just because of a border change. The stress of navigating insurance plans, the constant worry about unexpected medical bills, these aren't concerns most Canadians deal with today. But under the U.S. system, it could be a whole different story. Reason 2. Healthcare system. When it comes to healthcare, Canada isn't perfect, but it's light years ahead of the U.S. in one crucial way: accessibility. The U.S. spends more per capita on healthcare than any other country, yet millions remain uninsured or underinsured. Meanwhile, in Canada, universal coverage ensures that no one has to choose between rent and a hospital visit. U.S. healthcare spending per capita, $12,914, Canada, $6,319. Imagine going to the ER and walking out without a bill that makes you question your life choices. Sounds like a dream, right? If Canada were to adopt the U.S. system, wait times might decrease, but at what cost? Canadians currently enjoy predictable, affordable healthcare, something millions of Americans can only hope for. The structure of the Canadian system, despite its flaws, provides essential care for everyone. If Canada were to become part of the U.S., private insurance companies would likely dominate the market, putting profits before people. This could lead to higher out-of-pocket expenses, forcing Canadians to make tough choices about their health. And let's not forget the price of prescription medications. The U.S. pays some of the highest prices for drugs globally, whereas Canada's government negotiations help keep those costs more reasonable. Reason 3. GDP and GDP per capita. Let's talk dollars and cents. How does Canada stack up economically? Canada's GDP sits at a solid $2.1 trillion, which would place it as the 3rd largest state just behind California and Texas. Canada GDP $2.1 trillion, California, $3.9 trillion, Texas, $2.4 trillion. However, GDP per capita tells a different story. Canada's figure of $54,000 would put it near the bottom compared to U.S. states. If Canada joined the U.S., it could mean a loss of economic independence. Policies favoring larger states could overshadow Canadian industries, making economic decisions harder to control. Would Canadians really want Wall Street calling the shots on their economy? Probably not. Another important aspect to consider is taxation. Canada's taxation system, while higher in some areas, ensures that essential services such as healthcare, education, and social welfare programs are well-funded and accessible. In the U.S., taxation varies widely by state, and federal funding is often spread thin, leaving many citizens without adequate access to public services. If Canada were to become a U.S. state, tax revenues might be redirected towards federal programs that do not align with Canadian priorities, such as military spending. The balance of social programs that Canadians rely on could be disrupted, potentially leading to cuts in essential services that have long been a cornerstone of Canadian society. Reason 4. Education. Education is another area where Canada shines. Did you know that 58% of Canadian adults hold a college degree? If Canada were a U.S. state, it would take the top spot in education, ahead of Massachusetts. Canada, 58% college degrees, Massachusetts, 44%. But imagine the impact of adopting an American-style student debt crisis. Would higher education still be as accessible, or would young Canadians find themselves drowning in loans? In Canada, post-secondary education is significantly more affordable compared to the US, where students graduate with crippling debt that takes decades to pay off. If Canada were to become part of the US, tuition rates could skyrocket, making it difficult for future generations to pursue higher education without financial burden. Additionally, the quality of education could shift, with greater emphasis placed on standardized testing and less on critical thinking and innovation, two areas where Canada currently excels. The Canadian education system values equity and accessibility, ensuring that students from all backgrounds have opportunities to succeed. The prospect of losing this in exchange for an American model filled with financial barriers should give Canadians pause. Reason 5. Crime. Safety is priceless, and here's where Canada shines. If Canada joined the US, it would rank second lowest in homicide rates, just behind Massachusetts. At a rate of 2 murders per 100,000 people, it's far below the US average. Canada homicide rate 2 by 1 lakh, US average 5 by 1 lakh. But would adopting US gun laws and policing policies lead to an increase in crime? Canadians enjoy relatively low gun violence and a different approach to law enforcement, one they may not want to give up. Canada has strict gun control laws, and the culture surrounding firearms is vastly different from that of the US. If Canada were to integrate into the American system, it could face challenges in maintaining its lower crime rates. Gun-related deaths, mass shootings, and gang violence are significantly lower in Canada, and many Canadians appreciate their country's focus on prevention and rehabilitation rather than punishment. Joining the US could result in a shift towards a more aggressive and punitive approach to crime, which may not align with Canadian values of community and social support. Canada stands strong on its own. Its healthcare, education, economy, and safety all contribute to a high quality of life. Becoming the 51st state might bring some perks, such as a larger market and increased political influence, but it could also threaten what makes Canada unique. The cultural differences, social policies, and values that define Canada could be compromised in favor of American interests. Canadians would have to navigate a new political landscape, potentially losing their universal healthcare system, experiencing economic shifts, and facing increased crime rates. Ultimately, the cost of statehood may be too high. Want to learn more about how Canada stacks up in other areas? Click the link to watch my next video on how Canada compares globally in innovation and happiness. See you there.